Hello boys and girls, it's Aunty Mimmi here, and today our fun book is from Disney and it's called Sleeping Beauty. Sounds fun, doesn't it? If you've not already subscribed to the channel, please do so now. Then sit back, get comfortable and let's begin. Long ago, in a faraway land, there lived a king and queen who held a great feast to celebrate the birth of their baby daughter, Aurora. The king of a nearby country and his young son Philip were guests at the feast. The two kings made plans for Philip and Aurora to marry on the princess's 16th birthday. Also at the celebrations were the princess's three fairy godmothers, Flora, Fauna and Merryweather. Each of them brought a special gift for the little princess. First, Flora waved her magic wand over the baby's cradle and said, "I give you the gift of beauty." Then Fauna waved her wand and said, "I give you the gift of song." Finally, Merryweather fluttered over to the cradle. She raised her wand and... Suddenly there was a crack of thunder. Maleficent, the wicked fairy, stormed in. She was furious that she had not been invited to the celebrations. Stroking her pet raven, Maleficent glared at the baby princess. "I also have a gift for you," she hissed. "Before the sun sets on your 16th birthday, you will prick your finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and die." Maleficent threw back her head and laughed wickedly. Then she disappeared in a cloud of purple smoke. Merryweather gave a gentle cough. "I still have my gift for the princess," she reminded the horrified king and queen. She went over to the sleeping baby and whispered, "When the spindle pricks your finger, you will not die. Instead, you will fall into an enchanted sleep. From this slumber, you shall wake when true love kisses the spell shall break." The king was still worried about his daughter's safety. He ordered every spinning wheel in the kingdom to be burned. Then he and the queen sadly agreed to the fairy godmother's plan to protect Aurora until her 16th birthday had passed. Flora, Fauna and Merryweather renamed the princess Briar Rose. They took her far away to a little cottage in the woods. There the fairies put away their magic wands. They disguised themselves as peasant women so that Maleficent wouldn't be able to find them. As the years passed, Maleficent kept searching for the princess, but she never found her. As the princess's 16th birthday drew nearer, Maleficent sent her trusted pet raven to try to find her. It was Maleficent's last chance. The morning of Briar Rose's birthday came. The three fairies sent her to collect berries so they could prepare some birthday surprises. After gathering the berries, Briar Rose rested in a woodland glade. She sang about falling in love with a handsome prince. Her friends, the animals and birds, found a cloak, a hat, and a pair of boots. They dressed up as a make-believe prince. Briar Rose joined in their game, dancing and singing with them. The clothes belonged to Prince Philip, who, after a long ride, was resting in the woods with his horse. Philip was enchanted by the beautiful voice coming through the trees and went to find the singer. As soon as they met, Briar Rose and the handsome stranger fell in love. They felt sure that they had met before, once upon a dream. When it was time for Briar Rose to leave, they arranged to meet that evening at the cottage in the woods. Meanwhile, the three fairies were in a terrible muddle. Fauna had baked a birthday cake, but the mixture was too runny and the cake wouldn't stand up. Flora and Merryweather had made a special gown for Briar Rose, but it was a very funny shape. "It's no use," said Merryweather. "We need to use magic to sort this out. I'll fetch the wands." Before they dared to use their wands, the fairies blocked up every gap in the cottage. They had to stop any magic dust escaping and alerting Maleficent to their hideaway, but they forgot to block the chimney. It was so wonderful to be able to use magic again. Flora waved her wand and a beautiful pink gown appeared. Then Merryweather waved her wand and changed the gown to blue. Flora changed it back to pink. All the time magic dust was escaping from the chimney. Maleficent Raven was searching nearby. He saw the magic dust and decided to investigate. By the time Bria Rose returned to the cottage, the peasants were all ready. She thanked her fairy godmothers for the beautiful new gown and the delicious cake. "This is the happiest day of my life," she said. Then she began to tell them about the handsome stranger she'd met in the woods. She planned to meet him that very evening. "It's time we told Bria Rose the truth," said Fauna. Up on the chimney, Maleficent's Raven smiled. So Bria Rose discovered that she really was a princess and would have to marry Prince Philip. "Today you must return to the palace and start your new life," said Flora. Bria Rose was heartbroken. She didn't want to marry a prince. She'd fallen in love with the handsome stranger she had met in the woods. By now the raven had heard enough. He flapped his wings and flew away to tell his mistress that the search for Princess Aurora was finally over. As soon as darkness fell, the fairy godmothers led Bria Rose through the forest to the palace. They had no idea that Maleficent was already there, lying in wait for them. At the palace, the fairy godmothers left Aurora in a quiet room to rest. Suddenly a strange, glowing light appeared. Aurora followed it in a trance-like state. It led up to a winding staircase to an attic room. Inside the room was Maleficent, waiting by a spinning wheel. Maleficent urged the princess to touch the spinning wheel. Aurora reached out. She pricked her finger on the spindle and fell to the floor. As soon as the fairy godmothers found Aurora lying by the spinning wheel, they cast a sleeping spell over the entire palace. Luckily, the fairies had discovered that Prince Philip was the stranger who Bria Rose had fallen in love with. Only his kiss could wake her. So while everyone was asleep, the fairies thought of a plan. They would return to the cottage, find Prince Philip and bring him back to the palace. But they were too late. Maleficent and her soldiers had trapped the prince at the cottage and had captured him. Maleficent took Philip back to her castle, where she threw him into her deepest dungeon. She fastened him to the wall with heavy chains and left him there to die. When the fairies didn't find Philip at the cottage, they guessed Maleficent may have captured him. They quickly made their way to her castle. As soon as it was safe, the fairies magically appeared in the dungeons and freed the prince. They waved their wands and armed him with a magic shield of virtue and a sword of truth. Then the prince galloped off to the palace to rescue the princess. When Maleficent discovered that the prince had escaped, she roared with rage. She cast a spell and surrounded the palace with a forest of thorns. But Philip was able to cut his way through with his magic sword. Suddenly, a huge and terrible black dragon appeared over him. The dragon laughed wickedly. It was Maleficent. Philip held up his magic shield so that the dragon's scorching flames could not touch him. The battle had begun. The dragon soared into the air and swooped down towards Philip. The prince hurled his magic sword at the dragon. The beast crashed to the ground. Maleficent was dead. Prince Philip raced towards the palace. He quickly found the room where the sleeping beauty lay. As he gently kissed her, she opened her eyes. The spell was broken. The fairy godmother's spell was broken too. All round the palace, people began to wake from their enchanted sleep. That evening, a magnificent ball was held to celebrate the wedding of Philip and Aurora. The princess, dressed in a beautiful blue gown, danced happily in the arms of her prince. As the fairy godmothers watched over them, Flora couldn't resist turning the blue gown back to pink. But Merryweather turned it back to blue, and so it went on. Pink, blue, pink, blue. Well, that was a fun book today, wasn't it, boys and girls? I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. As always, I want you to be kind to one another, look after one another, and try and have some fun every single day. Until next time, bye-bye.